as is often the case, you did everything yourself to start. At least you were potting plants yourself. You were even hand delivering plants at first. How do you approach that proof of concept where, yes, Eliza is doing every single task alone, but what is that point where you decide this is actually working, there's demand, now I'm going to go hire other people to help me grow this thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking back, I think part of what I attribute my success to was being like truly young, naive, and just full of energy. Because, you know, I think about those early days, I'm like, how did I even do that? The late nights, the manual labor involved, driving like a cargo van full of plants. That wasn't even my cargo van, like a rented cargo van.
How many deliveries were you doing per day at that point?
I mean, not that many, but enough where it was like, how am I going to actually work on this business and then like physically deliver these plants to our customers? I mean, the very first iteration of The Sill was a website that you could shop on if you lived near me. Like that's not even e-commerce. I don't even know what you call that.
It was like a little radius.
Yeah, it was like a store without a store.
Tinder for plants.
Yeah, but like not sophisticated at all. So it was a Shopify website. You know, I had 6 products, and if you bought something, I would be like, oh, I'm gonna like get in a truck and go to the nursery and buy that, and then pot that, and then I'm gonna show up at your door and like knock on it and hand you your product.
And probably lose money in the process.
Oh, all the money. I mean, I made no money. None. But you know, again, it goes back to this, you know, it resonated with people almost immediately. And I could see that. I mean, I don't even know that I had the language of like product market fit to articulate it that early, but I did set some, you know, in retrospect, totally arbitrary goals for myself that said, you know, if I can get to this many sales, if I can get to this many customers, if I can get to this much, you know, revenue by the end of the year, I'm going to keep going. And I just always kept hitting those milestones. And so I kept going. It wasn't fast. It wasn't an overnight success, but it did happen. And I think the, you know, testimonials I was getting were like the most motivating, right? Like I realized that plants actually had the power to change people's lives. I mean, plants make people happy is like cute and pithy, but it's also a very real, thing that happens. Like plants do make people happy. So how can you not?
There's science behind it.
And there's science behind it, right? Yeah. So for all those reasons, I just kept going.
It is true that you started The Sill with a co-founder. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this co-founder, I guess, left maybe within a year of the founding? You parted ways?
Yeah. So I think the short of it is, right, that when I started the business, I didn't know anything. I certainly didn't know about the complexity of co-founding relationships. And my co-founder was someone that I worked with before and a friend of mine. And it was my first real proof point. Like my validation was that I actually convinced someone to like start this with me. And that was all I needed. I was like, great, let's do this together. Let's be co-founders. You know, in retrospect, and now that I, you know, have an opportunity to like coach and mentor other founders, that's not generally enough to make a co-founding relationship, general excitement around your thesis. But, you know, I credit her to giving me that validation and confidence to get started. And she certainly helped me get started. I mean, we did this together for 6 to 8 months back in 2012, and that was huge. I don't think I could have started on my own in the same way. So, you know, I can't ignore that at all. I really value that experience. And then, quite frankly, the experience of having to go through then a co-founding breakup was really the first like test of resilience and need of knowing how dedicated I was to carrying this forward, because it really knocked me off my feet. You know, here I'm coming off of the initial launch, first sale, super exciting, to then find that like the co-founding partnership isn't going to work, to have to then untangle and unwind that and then carry forward was a huge learning lesson, I'll say, or lesson learned.
It's interesting just how the pandemic shifted ongoing trends and behaviors overall in the world of retail, and particularly within the D2C space, because obviously direct to consumer, it's digitally native. That's the nature of D2C. But then we saw so many brick and mortar stores pop up across brands. They were really leaning into that. And then those had to shut down during the pandemic. And now, we saw a huge surge in e-commerce during the pandemic, as you alluded to. But there's also this sense of, I want to get back in store. I want to go back in person to view products. Do you think there's any permanent changes as far as the mix of online and brick and mortar that will last as a result of the pandemic?
And
permanent
without
changes
a question.
consumer
there's
behavior?
No way that we're not going to see some permanent shifts in behavior. And there's so many reasons why. I think, it's people are just conscious about where they are, how they show up, how they use their time. We are just, physically in different places than we were before. And I don't think we're going to go back 100% ever, to like 5 days a week in an office type of environment. And so it just changes how everyone lives their life. I think as it relates to physical and digital, you've probably heard this expression already, but there's like the phygital experience, which is just to say that, coming out of the pandemic, we got really comfortable with the digital experience for those of us who weren't, using e-commerce in the way that we might do now. But now we're turning to the physical space. We have different expectations for it. And in a way, we expect that our physical experience acts more like a digital experience and that they're more intertwined. And a lot of the physical experiences had to create a digital experience during the pandemic. So I do think things like, to get really specific, like curbside pickup, I don't think that's going to go away. Or just like order online, pick up in store. I think a lot more organizations had to get savvy with that. I think we're not even seeing the full extent of the shift because I think it's still taking place. But we're absolutely, trying to pin it down, react to it, anticipate it, and make sure that we are showing up in the way that our customers expect, knowing that our customer behavior probably shifted more dramatically these past 18 months than ever before. And it was already moving quite quickly.
If you like what you saw and you like what you heard, you can listen to the entire episode of this podcast, Business Casual, anywhere you get your podcasts. And please go ahead and subscribe to the MorningBrew YouTube channel and go ahead and click on that alarm bell, that thing right there, so you can be alerted anytime there's a new video.